water is a challenge.
Something to be said for just sitting on something and being propelled through the water.
Care for the beach and care for people while they're swimming at the beach, as my ancestors did, cared for the beach and cared for the land.
It's a challenge to get to understand the water, to understand the wind, and to understand how to harness it, and you just never get to know all about it.
You never get to know all about it, but gee, we're drawn to it, aren't we? To the ocean, if we can get near it, we just like to be near it, get in it. Swimming, fishing, sailing. Speaking of which, this morning I was really surprised to learn that the Lake Macquarie Yacht Club has 1,800 members. So many of you loving to be out and about on the water, in a yacht. But our waterways, our ocean in particular, is not as healthy as it should be. With things like overfishing, chemical pollution, the ocean is changing, and those changes have significant impacts on our life outside the water. Dr. Rhys Halter is a conservation biologist and author of Ocean SOS in the latest edition of Organic Gardener magazine, and he's on the line all the way from LA in the US of A. Morning, Dr. Rhys Halter.
How are you, Jill, in Newcastle, New South Wales, baby?
All the way in LA, baby.
Yeah.
What's it like over there?
Oh, it's pretty fine. It's a lovely afternoon. It's probably 22 degrees C and clear skies. Good day.
Clear skies, nothing but clear skies. What draws you there, Dr. Halter?
Well, it's the entertainment capital of the world. To be quite frank, science is a tough sell, so we got to make it sexy and we got to make it accessible. And the oceans are very accessible because 3 out of every 4 breaths of air comes from our phytoplankton. So everybody's got a vested interest in this one.
Now, you're very passionate about this stuff, so much so that you're writing in an Australian, pretty much, gardening magazine. I mean, what lengths will you not go to protect the oceans?
Well, look, I'll do anything. And, to be very truthful, Australia is one of the greatest, if not the greatest nation in the world. It's an oceanic continent. Aussies love the ocean. I went to school at Melbourne Uni, and I had the privilege of doing my PhD there, so I know a little bit about you, and our friends are in trouble. The doctors of the sea, whether they're the dolphins, whales, or sharks, are crying for mercy. And not so far from where you are, your listeners, a wee bit north, maybe 1,500 km on the Great Barrier Reef, we've got a very, very big problem. The Queensland government, over the last 52 years, has annihilated 50,000 sharks, and also with the shark nets and the baited drumline, they've also inadvertently killed 53,000 other maritime masterpieces, from dolphins and whales to by sea turtles to the gentle and endangered dugongs.
It's a balancing act, Rhys. I'm sure. I wonder whether you do agree. Certainly, governments who have to manage these resources do say to us very clearly, it's a balancing act. We have to use the oceans for our, the broader benefit of the community, as well as just look at them and enjoy and ponder their beauty.
No. I fervently disagree. Mankind's ability to manage nature scores 0 out of 100. Man can't manage himself. What we have done to nature, anywhere and everywhere, is a first-rate disaster. And what we're doing to the oceans is a full-scale loot. We are taking at least 72 times more than the ocean can maintain. 9 out of 10 of the world's fisheries are in rapid decline. Not only are the surface fisheries done, but the deep-sea fisheries and the bottom trawling is destroying vast amounts of areas, 150 times that of what's being clear-cut on land every year. And it's been in the news, the Geelong Star trawler
See,
is
it's
off
12
badly
minutes
right now,
long. I'm
inadvertently,
4 minutes and
killing
58 seconds
sea
into
turtles and
for
dolphins,
the second
vacuuming the
try.
ocean. We can't do this because the fish, you see, are like the glue in the matrix of the sea, and the fish hold everything else together. In the oceans, like on land,
Don't lie. I just
depends
acted like
on
the cats
everything
don't
else,
around.
and
I
the
just have to
strength
make
of
sure
the
they don't like
ecosystem is dependent
swing
on
across
all
my
the
desk.
biodiversity. And
I have to
we
make
have
sure I press the
destroyed
button when it's
everything.
over.
This is a crisis, and if that isn't bad enough,
Yeah.
the amount of ocean plastic that we're pushing in daily, 3.5 million pieces, is an SOS of epic proportions. So, for every problem, there are 3 solutions. We involve every school child on every coast, on every river, on every lake to cut off the plastic from going into the ocean. We take a long look at the subsidies that we are paying the fisher people to kill the ocean, and we just pay them to not kill the ocean because we need things alive. The oceans
they're mostly water.
are angry. The storms are super storms. Y'all just got slammed
Well,
last
stop.
week and a couple weeks before. The oceans are very warm.
You are not.
Warm oceans and warm air are holding more moisture. When eastern lows come, like they did last week, we have violent storms. Sydney was smote with 49-foot waves. We've got to dial back for our children.
A message of a warning, if you like, from a very passionate Dr. Reese Walter, who has written in the latest edition of Organic Gardener magazine a piece called Ocean SOS, looking at the many threats to our healthy oceans. I just want to dial back a moment there to what you describe as a thoughtless plunder of our fish stocks. You make a point here that domestic cats eat more tuna than all the seals in the world. Can't those tuna stocks replenish?
Oh my Lord, the tuna is the biggest glaring disaster ever. First of all, the viewers can visit my site, Dr. Reese, and my last name is Halter, Halter. Second of all, the tuna is the pinnacle of there's 32,000 species of fish in the ocean, and the bluefin tuna is the top fish ever. A bluefin, a 3/4 ton, 16-foot bluefin tuna can beat a Ferrari off the line. Their heart is 10 times the size of any other fish. They are being penned and fed subsidized fish, and entire age classes have gone missing. Why? Because the big, I won't mention, a certain corporation overseas is cornering the market, and it is a disaster. The bluefin tuna will be extinct in the southern hemisphere within the decade and maybe a decade and a half around the world. We can't continue this because here's the thing. Most people have children. Most people wish for their children at least a future as illustrious as theirs. If we are not very careful, their future will be very grim.
You really think there's enough evidence there to show that the bluefin tuna is that much under threat?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's boatloads of information. I won't name the corporation because I know better. But in my book, Shepherding the Seas, A Race to Save Our Ocean, it's very apparent. And it is a gross mismanagement. And I will say this. There is a shocking, repugnant sense of entitlement by certain nations on our globe that are massacring the oceans and with no sense of tomorrow. The oceans belong to all of us. The United Nations Convention Law of the Sea, they belong to the commons, and they are being wiped out. The dolphins and the whales. Here's the whales. 200 years ago, in a 200 spade of years, humans have massacred 5 million whales. There's no population that's higher than 3%. Why are we still killing whales. When in 1986, a worldwide moratorium said stop killing whales. We have the International Court of Justice, the highest court in the land, that ruled against Japan to stop killing whales. Japan's going to go back in December and kill whales.
Well, we know there's a huge political debate around that one, Reese Halter. It is 12 away from 11 on 12:33. Hunter Life Aquatic getting the passionate views of conservation biologist and author Dr. Reese Halter on 12:33 ABC Newcastle. He's written an article called Ocean SOS in the latest edition of Organic Gardener magazine. We've got 3 copies of it to give you. If you're up for it, you need to be listening in order to know the answer to the question, because it's going to be pretty straightforward. I need to wrap up on this. If you are as convinced as you are that the fish stocks are insufficient to, in effect, replace themselves, where are we going to get fish to eat from?
Well, here's the rub. There's almost 7.4 billion of us, and the only way we can turn into 8 billion in 2024 and beyond is to look to the land and become plant-based. We can't do it with cattle and animals because of the water issue and the feed, and the oceans are filled with pollution. I will leave you with this. If you eat fish, you eat plastic. And if you eat plastic, the plastic in the ocean is contaminated with a dozen highly carcinogenic chemicals.
Scary thoughts. You reckon then no fish, no meat even?
No fish, no meat, and it's just the way it is. I know the listeners will go, yeah, look at that old greenie out there, but you know what? I'm looking after our planet for our children and for the few remaining animals. It's tough out there.
Dr. Reese Halter, conservation biologist and author. He's written a piece called Ocean SOS in Organic Gardener magazine.
Tune in to 12:33 ABC Newcastle wherever you are. Find more from your favourite shows. Catch up on stories you've missed with abc.net.au/Newcastle.